Hey, it's good to have you back. This week's episode is called Smart Isn't What It Used to Be. Here's the thing. For a long time, being smart had a look. You knew the answer. You got the grade. You spoke clearly in the meeting. You remembered the facts. You had the certificate, the degree, the sharp response, the impressive job title. Smart was something people could point to, something measurable, something you could frame, something you could put on LinkedIn without sounding too emotional about it. And for a while that worked, it really did, especially for generations who were taught that knowledge was security. Study hard, get qualified, know your stuff, be the person in the room who has the answer. Because if you had the answer, you had value. But now, wait for it. Something strange has happened. The answers are everywhere. In your phone, in search bars, in group chats. That is fab for sure. Ask a question and answers will appear like magic, right in front of you. Sometimes with hallucinations. So watch out for that, folks, with AI. It happens. AI tools can explain, summarize, translate, calculate, draft, compare, and respond before you have even finished forming the question. So if intelligence was built around having the answer, what happens when the answer becomes cheap? That is the uncomfortable shift. Not that knowledge does not matter. It does. Of course it does. But knowledge alone does not feel like the whole currency anymore. Because now the harder thing is knowing what to do with the answer. Knowing when something is technically correct but emotionally tone deaf. Knowing when to speak and when the room needs silence. Understanding and knowing when you are informed and when you are just repeating something that sounded clever online. That is where emotional intelligence enters the room, not as a soft skill. By the way, there is nothing soft about it. It should be reframed to essential skills, in my opinion. With that, let's carry on. Soft skill makes it sound optional, like a nice extra, like garnish. By the way, I love a garnish, especially gherkins. Yummy, and please don't judge me. I do like them. But emotional intelligence is not soft. Like I said, far from it. It is often the thing that stops smart people from ruining the room. It is the difference between being right and being useful, between having a point and understanding the moment. You know, I'm talking about from getting your points across in an argument or losing the person. And I think this is where the multi-generational tension lives. Because different generations were trained to respect different kinds of smart. It's true, and that's okay. Some people grew up believing intelligence meant discipline. Qualifications? Professionalism. Being composed? Keeping personal things personal. Not bringing feelings into work. Not over-explaining yourself. Just getting on with it, no matter what. And as a Brit, the stiff upper lip and all that. And then younger generations came into the room with a different language. Boundaries. Burnout. Self-awareness, mental health, values, purpose, emotional labor, yikes. And sometimes older generations heard that and thought, why is everything so personal now? Why does every decision need a feeling attached to it? Why can't people just do the job? But younger people are often looking at the same world and thinking, why are we pretending feelings are not already in the room? Why are we acting like pressure has no cost? Why do we keep calling people professional when what we really mean is emotionally silent? That is the clash, the friction, and in many cases, the truth. It's bare. One side was taught to survive by containing emotion. The other is trying to survive by naming it. And honestly, both sides have blind spots. Because being book smart without emotional awareness can make you impressive, but difficult to trust. You can know the model, know the market, understand the strategy, know exactly what should happen next, and still not understand why nobody wants to follow you there. Right? But being emotionally smart without discipline can become its own trap too. You can name every feeling, analyze every dynamic, not necessary, sense every shift in the room, and still avoid the hard work of building competence. Still mistake sensitivity for depth. Still confuse discomfort with harm. This one might sting a bit, but stay with me. When you confuse or think being emotionally aware means you are automatically emotionally mature. It does not. Let me say that again. It does not. That is the part we need to be honest about. The future does not belong to people who are only book smart, but it also does not belong to people who only know how to talk about feelings. It belongs to people who can hold both. Yes, both. Gosh, I said it out loud. Finally. Here is what I mean. People who can think clearly under pressure and still stay human. People who can read the data and who also read the room. Go slow if needed, speed up when that's better. People who can use AI for the answer but know which question was worth asking. Have judgment, because that might be the real shift. The right questions to ask to use that experience and judgment from it. AI is making us confront the parts of intelligence that were never just about information. Judgment, taste, timing, care, context, humility. Let that sink in. The ability to notice when someone says, "I'm fine," and the whole sentence sounds tired. The ability to understand that a fast reply is not always a good one. The ability to admit, "I know a lot about this, but I may not understand how it feels or lands for you." That sentence alone could change half the meetings in the world. I see it as intelligence and empathy. An empathy that's strengthened by rigor. We keep splitting the two apart. Book smart or emotionally smart. Logic or feeling. Head or heart. But real life does not separate them that neatly. Real life asks you to make decisions while tired, to lead people who are anxious, to build things without full certainty, to disagree without making someone feel small, to change your mind without collapsing your whole identity, to care without becoming consumed, and to be sharp without becoming cruel. Tough, right? But we do it. So you see, all of this is a different kind of smart. And it is harder to measure. No certificate fully proves it. No job title guarantees it. No viral post can perform it for long. You find out someone has it in the small moments. How they respond when they are challenged. How they speak about people who are not in the room. Or how they handle power. How they apologize. How they listen when there is nothing to gain. And how they treat confusion. That is where intelligence reveals itself now. Not just in what you know, but in what your knowledge turns you into. Because now the question is, what kind of person does your intelligence make you? Does it make you curious? Or superior? Does it make you generous? Or impossible? Does it make you more alive to other people? Or more attached to being the cleverest person in the room? That is the emotional weather of this shift. A lot of people are realizing that the intelligence they were praised for is not enough on its own anymore, and that can feel confronting, especially if you built your whole identity around being capable, being right, being the one who knows. But maybe this is not the end of being smart. Of course it's not. Instead, is it an invitation to make intelligence more human? Less about performance, more about perception, less about proving, more about understanding. Because in a world full of answers and hallucinations, the rarest thing might be someone who knows how to hold complexity without turning cold. Someone who can be brilliant without needing to dominate. A person who can feel deeply without drowning in it. Someone who can learn fast, but listen slowly. So now, book smart or emotionally smart is the wrong question. The better question is, can your intelligence survive contact with another person's reality? Can it bend? Can it listen? And can it admit what it missed? Think about your last argument. Think back and question yourself if you actually did. Today's smart is not what it used to be. And maybe that is not a loss. Maybe it is a correction. Kind of like a reminder that the point of intelligence was never just to know more. It was to understand better and to become someone worth being understood by. So here is the question I do want to leave with you. Where in your life are you still trying to prove that you are smart, when what the moment may actually need is in fact for you to be wise? If you dare, ask AI, but use your own judgment if you agree with the answer. Only you can decide. And of course, long may that continue. This is an AI voice-powered podcast shared by humans who simply want to connect across generations and normalize the art of starting again. New episodes drop weekly. Share it with someone who's navigating their own pivot or who needs to hear that beginnings aren't failures. They're growth.